The poor orphan saves abandoned puppy. It was as simple and impulsive as that. A moment that would alter the course of two broken lives. No grand plan, no expectation of reward, just a skinny boy with empty pockets and a heart too big for his threadbare coat. Unable to walk past the whimpering bundle of matted fur huddled against the dumpster in the rain, Ethan Morgan had learned to keep moving, to not look too closely at the world's countless casualties. At 16, 3 years into his precarious existence since aging out of the group home, survival meant invisibility. Head down, shoulders hunched against the November chill, he'd developed the purposeful stride of someone with somewhere to belong, a convincing performance that fooled everyone except himself. But the sound stopped him, a pathetic, hiccuping whine that pierced the steady drumming of rain on metal. Ethan stood frozen on the cracked pavement of the alley, his meager groceries clutched to his chest, listening. The sensible voice in his head, the one that had kept him fed and sheltered through 3 winters on his own, urged him forward. The small apartment waiting for him, a miracle of minimum wage persistence and a sympathetic landlord, could barely accommodate one hungry soul, let alone 2. The cry came again, weaker this time. His fingers tightened around the paper bag. "Don't," he whispered to himself, the word creating a small cloud in the frigid air. But his feet were already moving, splash-stepping through puddles toward the dumpster. The puppy was so small, Ethan nearly missed it. A pathetic tangle of dirty white fur with patches missing, revealing raw pink skin underneath. Its eyes, barely open, were crusted with infection. When Ethan crouched down, his joints cracking from the cold, the creature attempted to crawl away, its tiny body trembling with fear and exhaustion. "Hey," Ethan said softly, his voice rusty from disuse. He set his groceries on the wet pavement and extended a cautious hand. "I won't hurt you." The puppy flinched, then went still, as if surrendering to whatever fate awaited. Its resignation was familiar. Ethan had seen it in the eyes of too many children, had felt it in himself more times than he could count. The quiet acceptance that help never really came, that hoping only made the disappointment sharper. Rain plastered Ethan's dark hair to his forehead, trickled down his neck. His second-hand jacket, already damp, grew heavier as he remained crouched there, hand extended, waiting for trust that might never come. The sensible voice grew louder. He would be late for his evening shift. The groceries were getting wet. The puppy would likely die anyway. But another voice, one he thought had been silenced years ago, whispered, "You know what it's like to be left in the rain." His dinner, a can of soup and half a loaf of bread that would need to last until Friday, sat soaking on the ground. Behind him, a car splashed through a puddle, its headlights briefly illuminating the scene. A thin boy, a dying puppy, the darkening alley. To anyone passing, it would look like just another sad urban tableau, forgettable and common. With a slow, gentle movement, Ethan shrugged out of his jacket. The cold immediately bit through his thin t-shirt, but he ignored it, carefully wrapping the trembling puppy in the damp fabric. The animal was too weak to resist, its tiny body burning with fever against Ethan's hands. "Okay," he murmured, gathering his sodden groceries with one arm, cradling the jacket bundle against his chest with the other. "Let's get you somewhere dry." The 3-flight climb to his apartment was a blur of cold and worry. By the time Ethan fumbled his key into the lock, the puppy had gone still, and for one terrible moment, he thought he was too late. But as he laid the bundle on his threadbare couch, a tiny movement beneath the fabric reassured him. The creature was still fighting. Ethan's apartment was barely worthy of the name. A studio with a hot plate, a mini fridge, and a bathroom where the shower leaked perpetually. But it was dry and warm, the one luxury he allowed himself being sufficient heat during winter. Now he was grateful for that small extravagance as he gently unwrapped the puppy. In the harsh overhead light, the animal looked even worse. Emaciated, covered in sores, one ear torn and crusted with blood. Its breathing came in shallow gasps, each one seeming to require tremendous effort. "I don't know how to help you," Ethan admitted, panic rising in his throat. He had never owned a pet, had never been responsible for any living thing but himself. Medical care was out of the question. He could barely afford his own essentials, much less veterinary bills. But the alternative, returning the puppy to the alley, or worse, watching it die on his couch, was unthinkable. He called the only person who might help. "Mrs. Patel," answered on the 4th ring. His landlady's voice was warm but concerned. "Ethan? Is everything all right with the apartment?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, then hesitated. "I found a puppy. It's really sick, and I don't know what to do." The silence that followed made his stomach clench. He was asking too much, crossing the careful boundary he maintained with everyone in his life. Mrs. Patel was kind, but she wasn't family. No one was. Then she said, "Bring it to my apartment." My sister was a veterinary assistant for many years. Relief made Ethan's knees weak. "Thank you. I'll be right down." 20 minutes later, the puppy lay on a towel on Mrs. Patel's kitchen table, being examined by careful hands. Mrs. Patel's sister, Divya, had arrived wearing pajamas under her coat, hair hastily tied back, eyes soft with concern. "He's been out there a long time," she said, gently cleaning the crusted eyes with a warm cloth. "Malnutrition, infection, probably parasites. He's very young too, maybe 5 or 6 weeks." Ethan stood awkwardly by the door, dripping rainwater onto the welcome mat. Do you think he'll make it?" Divya met his gaze, her expression both kind and honest. "I don't know. It will take time, medicine, good food." She hesitated. "It won't be cheap and there's no guarantee." The puppy whimpered as she touched a particularly sore spot, a sound so pitiful it made Ethan's chest ache. Mrs. Patel, watching from nearby, placed a gentle hand on her sister's shoulder. "We'll help," she said firmly, looking at Ethan. "You were right to rescue him. I can't pay for—" Ethan began, shame coloring his face. Mrs. Patel waved away his words. "Did I ask for payment? This is what neighbors do." Her expression softened. "You work hard, you pay your rent on time. Let us help you help this little one." That night, the puppy slept in a makeshift bed on Ethan's floor, a cardboard box lined with soft towels Mrs. Patel had insisted he take. Divya had administered what treatment she could, promising to bring proper medications the next day. The prognosis remained guarded, but the tiny creature had swallowed a few spoonfuls of the diluted broth Divya prepared, a small victory that felt monumental. Ethan lay awake on his mattress, listening to the puppy's labored breathing. Snow had replaced the rain, tapping gently against his single window, casting soft blue shadows across the floor. The room felt different somehow, as if the presence of another heartbeat had altered its dimensions, made it less a place of temporary shelter and more something else. Something he couldn't quite name. "We'll figure it out," he whispered into the darkness, unsure if he was speaking to the puppy or himself. The puppy survived the night and then the next. Divya visited daily, bringing medications, puppy formula, and gentle encouragement. Mrs. Patel appeared with casseroles that need eating, claiming she'd made too much food again. Ethan knew it was a kindness, but his pride allowed him to accept it as a fair exchange for the care his puppy was receiving. His puppy. The phrase settled in his mind with terrifying permanence. By the end of the first week, the puppy, whom Ethan had begun calling Scout, though he told himself the name was temporary, was showing remarkable improvement. The infections were clearing, revealing bright, intelligent eyes. The torn ear would remain scarred, but the sores were healing, and soft, clean fur was beginning to grow back over the raw patches. "He's a fighter," Divya remarked one evening, watching Scout take his first wobbling steps across Ethan's floor. "Like someone else I know." Ethan busied himself straightening the blankets on Scout's box, uncomfortable with the observation. "I'm just doing what anyone would do." Divya's laugh was warm, not unkind. "Is that what you think? That anyone would give up their dinner, their jacket, their space for a dying stray?" She shook her head. "Most people would have walked past, Ethan. The kind ones might have felt bad about it afterward." He had no response to that. In truth, he didn't understand his own actions any better than Divya did. All he knew was that walking away had been impossible, as if an invisible thread had connected him to that small life from the moment he heard its cry. Scout grew stronger each day, his personality emerging with his health. Curious, affectionate, and surprisingly dignified for such a small creature. He followed Ethan everywhere in the tiny apartment, curling against his feet when he sat at the table to eat, sleeping pressed against his side at night. The routine of caring for him, the feeding, the medicines, the brief walks as he gained strength, anchored Ethan's days in a way his work shifts never had. It was during the third week that everything changed. Ethan had taken Scout to the small park 2 blocks from his apartment, their first real venture outside since the rescue. The December air was crisp but not bitter, the weak winter sun casting long shadows across the yellowed grass. Scout, still thin but now steadily gaining weight, explored cautiously, sniffing at frozen patches of earth, staying close to Ethan's feet. "He's beautiful," came a voice from behind. Ethan turned to find an older man watching them, his silver hair neat beneath an expensive-looking hat, his coat clearly tailored. Everything about him, from his polished shoes to his leather gloves, spoke of a world Ethan had only glimpsed through shop windows. "Thanks," Ethan replied, automatically stepping closer to Scout. Protective. The man's eyes never left the puppy. "Krelwan, what breed is he?" he asked, his voice casual but something intent in his gaze. Ethan shrugged. "Just a mutt, I guess." "I found him. May I?" The man gestured toward Scout, who was now hiding behind Ethan's legs, watching the stranger with wary eyes. Every instinct told Ethan to refuse, to gather Scout up and leave. But there was nothing threatening about the man, just an intense interest that seemed excessive for a rescued stray. Reluctantly, he nodded. The man crouched down, movements deliberate and slow. He extended his hand, allowing Scout to sniff his fingers before gently running a hand over the puppy's head, examining the shape of his muzzle, the set of his ears, even the damaged one, with the attention of a jeweler assessing a rare stone. "Extraordinary," he murmured almost to himself. Then standing, "Young man, do you know what you have here?" Ethan frowned. "A puppy?" The man laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "Not just any puppy. This appears to be a Himalayan snowcrest, one of the rarest breeds in the world. There are perhaps 50 left globally." He pulled out a business card, offering it with an elegant gesture. "My name is Lawrence Wyndham. I operate a sanctuary for rare and endangered canine breeds. I would very much like to talk with you about your remarkable friend here." Ethan took the card automatically, disbelief making his movements mechanical. The thick cream cardstock felt foreign between his calloused fingers. You're mistaken," he said flatly. He was dying next to a dumpster. "He's just a stray." Lawrence's eyes crinkled at the corners, sympathy and excitement mingling in his expression. The purest treasures are often found in the unlikeliest places. He glanced at his watch. "I'm late for an appointment, but please call me. If I'm right, and I rarely make mistakes about these things, what you have there is beyond price." He walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving behind only the business card and a sense of unreality that followed Ethan all the way home. That night, after Scout had fallen asleep in his box, Ethan sat at his small table and researched Himalayan snowcrests on his cracked phone screen. The results were sparse but consistent with Lawrence's claims. An ancient breed from the remote Himalayan regions, prized by nobility for centuries, thought extinct until a small population was discovered in the 1980s. Distinctive characteristics included unusual blue-white coat coloration, exceptional intelligence, and remarkable loyalty. Current population estimates range from 30 to 50 worldwide. The values mentioned made Ethan's head swim. 6 figures, sometimes 7. He looked at Scout, sleeping peacefully, one paw twitching in some puppy dream. The matted, dying creature from the alley was now revealed as something rare and precious, something people would pay fortunes to possess. The irony wasn't lost on Ethan. He too had been discarded, unwanted, his value unrecognized by the world that had first created and then abandoned him. He closed the browser and placed his phone face down on the table. Tomorrow, he decided, he would call Lawrence Wyndham and learn more about what this meant for Scout, for both of them. Mrs. Patel's reaction the next morning was unexpected. "Be careful," she said, her usually smiling face serious as she handed him a cup of chai he hadn't asked for, but now accepted as part of their routine. When something valuable is discovered, many hands reach for it, and not all with good intentions. Ethan warmed his fingers around the cup. "You think he's lying?" "No." She settled across from him at her kitchen table while Scout explored the familiar apartment. Now comfortable enough to venture away from Ethan's side. "I think he probably knows exactly what he's talking about. But knowledge isn't the same as trustworthiness." Divya, arriving for her morning check on Scout, was equally cautious. These rare breed situations can get complicated. There are registries, ownership disputes, breeding rights. She watched Scout fondly as he attempted to unravel the fringe on a throw pillow. "Just remember, whatever he is, whatever he's worth to others, he's still the same puppy you saved from the rain." The reminder steadied Ethan as he dialed Lawrence's number later that day. The conversation was brief but cordial, resulting in an appointment for Lawrence to visit Ethan's apartment the following afternoon. Lawrence had suggested meeting at his office, but Ethan preferred home ground for this discussion, even if home was a sparse studio apartment that revealed too much about his circumstances. When Lawrence arrived, punctual to the minute, he brought with him an assistant, a young woman named Claire with kind eyes and a notebook, and a quiet respect for Ethan's space that put him more at ease than expected. There was no condescension in Lawrence's manner as he accepted the chipped mug of instant coffee. No hint of judgment as he took in the second-hand furniture and bare walls. Scout, now confident in his home territory, approached the visitors with wary curiosity. Lawrence's examination was thorough but gentle, his narration educational rather than patronizing. See the distinctive ridge along the muzzle? The precise angle of the ear set, even with the injury to the right one? The unique blue undertone to the white coat? He pointed out features to Claire, who photographed and made notes. Most tellingly, look at the paw pads. The characteristic snowflake pattern is unmistakable. When the examination was complete, Lawrence sat back on Ethan's couch, his expression thoughtful. There's no doubt in my mind. You have a purebred Himalayan snowcrest, a male approximately 9 weeks old now, judging by dentition. His condition is remarkable given what he's been through. Ethan sat stiffly in the room's only chair. Scout now settled protectively in his lap. So what happens now? Lawrence considered him carefully. That depends entirely on you. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I won't insult you with platitudes about money not being important. We both know that's a luxury belief of those who have it. This puppy, once matured and authenticated, represents a considerable financial asset. The word asset made Ethan's hands tighten around Scout. Lawrence noticed. However, he continued, his voice softening, that's not why I approached you. My sanctuary's mission is preservation of endangered breeds through ethical means. We maintain genetic diversity, provide expert care, and ensure these living treasures aren't lost to history. He hesitated. We don't buy and sell dogs, Ethan. We protect them. What are you asking exactly? Ethan's voice was steadier than he felt. I'm offering a partnership. Lawrence gestured to Claire, who produced a folder of documents. Scout, excellent name by the way, would be officially registered as a Himalayan snowcrest under your ownership. You would receive a stipend as his guardian, plus coverage of all care expenses. In exchange, when he's matured, we would request limited breeding rights to help preserve the bloodline. Ethan frowned. You want to take him? No. Lawrence shook his head emphatically. He stays with you. We provide support, training, proper care. He remains your companion, your dog in every sense. A smile touched the older man's face. It's clear he's bonded to you, and that bond is precious. The Snowcrests are known for their singular loyalty. Historically, they would bond with one person for life. The legends say they could find their person across any distance, through any obstacle. Claire spoke for the first time, her voice gentle. We've been searching for Snowcrests for years. There were rumors of a litter born in this region 8 to 10 weeks ago, but the breeder disappeared. We feared the worst. She looked at Scout with genuine affection. He's not just rare, Ethan. He might be the last of his particular bloodline. The weight of this revelation settled over the small apartment. Ethan stroked Scout's head, feeling the steady thump of his tail against his leg, the warm pressure of the small body trusting completely in his protection. I need time to think, he said finally. Lawrence nodded, unsurprised. Of course. He placed the folder on the coffee table. Review these materials. Call me with any questions. No obligation, no pressure. He stood, signaling the end of the visit. Whatever you decide, I want to thank you for saving him. Not everyone would have stopped that night. After they left, Ethan sat motionless, Scout dozing in his lap, the folder untouched on the table. The afternoon light faded into evening, shadows lengthening across the floor. His shift at the warehouse started in an hour, but he couldn't bring himself to move, to disrupt this moment of quiet contemplation. The phone call to Mrs. Patel to ask if she could watch Scout for the evening finally broke his reverie. Her voice was warm with understanding. Bring him down. I made dinner. You'll eat before you go. In the weeks that followed, Ethan's life transformed in ways both subtle and profound. After careful consideration and lengthy discussions with both Mrs. Patel and Divya, he had accepted Lawrence's offer, with additional conditions of his own that the older man had readily agreed to. Scout would remain with Ethan, legal ownership clear and undisputed. Any breeding would happen only with Ethan's explicit approval, and never before Scout was fully matured and healthy. The immediate changes were practical. Lawrence arranged for comprehensive veterinary care, premium nutrition, and training support. The monthly stipend, deposited directly into a new bank account Lawrence helped Ethan establish, was modest but life-changing for someone who had been surviving paycheck to paycheck with no safety net. More significantly, Ethan found himself drawn into the orbit of Lawrence's sanctuary and its community. What had begun as a business arrangement evolved naturally into something more meaningful. Lawrence, it turned out, had his own history of childhood hardship, creating an unexpected bridge between them. Claire became a regular visitor, her expertise with rare breeds balanced by a genuine fondness for both Scout and, increasingly, for Ethan himself. The sanctuary, located on the outskirts of the city, became a weekend destination. Ethan initially visited out of obligation, to learn about Scout's heritage and needs, but soon found himself volunteering there, his natural affinity with the animals surprising even himself. Among the other rescued rare breeds, each with their own story of near loss and preservation, Scout thrived, his confidence growing alongside Ethan's. As winter gave way to spring, the changes in Ethan's life accelerated. Lawrence, impressed by his intuitive understanding of the sanctuary's residents, offered him part-time employment with flexible hours that allowed him to continue his warehouse job while he completed his GED. Another opportunity Lawrence had gently encouraged. Mrs. Patel and Divya remained constants, their apartment a second home for both Ethan and Scout. The sisters had become the closest thing to family Ethan had known since early childhood, their affection expressed through home-cooked meals, practical advice, and the quiet acceptance that had been their gift to him from the beginning. It was Mrs. Patel who first suggested that Ethan consider the sanctuary's educational outreach program. "They visit schools, yes? To teach about conservation?" she asked one evening as they sat in her kitchen. Scout curled at Ethan's feet. "You explain things well. You could do this." Ethan shook his head, uncomfortable with the suggestion. "I'm not good with people, kids especially." Mrs. Patel's expression was knowing. "You were not good with puppies either, until you found one that needed you." The seed planted, Ethan found himself observing Claire during the sanctuary's educational programs, noting how she engaged the children, how she translated complex conservation concepts into stories they could understand and embrace. When Lawrence eventually asked if he would consider assisting with a school visit, Ethan surprised himself by agreeing. The first presentation was terrifying. Standing before 34th graders, Scout on his best behavior beside him, Ethan felt every inadequacy of his interrupted education, his years of isolation. His hands trembled as he began speaking, his voice barely audible. But when he described finding Scout in the alley, the rain, the fear, the moment of connection, the children leaned forward, captivated. A small girl in the front row raised her hand. "Were you scared to take him home?" The question, simple and direct, cut through Ethan's prepared script. "Yeah," he admitted, crouching down to be at eye level with the class, one hand resting on Scout's back. "I was scared I wouldn't know how to help him, that I'd do something wrong. But you tried anyway." The girl persisted, her expression serious. Ethan nodded, something opening in his chest. "Sometimes trying is all we can do, and sometimes it's enough." After that first success, the educational programs became a regular part of Ethan's role at the sanctuary. Scout, now growing into his heritage with an unmistakable dignity that drew attention whenever they went out, was a natural ambassador. Children were drawn to his story of rescue and discovery, but it was Ethan's telling of it, honest, unpolished, deeply felt, that truly resonated. Summer brought new developments. Lawrence, increasingly impressed with Ethan's commitment and natural abilities, proposed a more formal role at the sanctuary upon his GED completion, including educational benefits that could lead to college courses in veterinary science or conservation. The warehouse job, once Ethan's lifeline, became supplementary rather than essential. More personally, his friendship with Claire deepened into something neither of them rushed to define. Their connection, built on shared passion for the animals and gradual mutual disclosure of past wounds, grew at its own pace. Claire's background, privileged in material ways but marked by emotional neglect, contrasted with Ethan's, creating spaces where each could offer understanding the other lacked. One warm evening in late July, they sat on the sanctuary's observation deck after closing, watching the sunset paint the enclosures in gold and amber. Scout lay between them, his coat now luxuriant, his once-torn ear giving him a rakish charm. "He saved my life, you know," Ethan said quietly, breaking a comfortable silence. Claire turned to him, curious. "How do you mean?" Ethan's fingers absently stroked Scout's fur. "Before him, I was just existing. Going through the motions." He struggled to articulate the emptiness that had been his normal for so long. "I didn't let myself want things or hope for things. It was easier that way." "And now?" Claire's question was gentle, her hand finding his in the gathering dusk. "Now I have things to lose," he admitted. It's terrifying, but it's better. As autumn approached, bringing with it the one-year anniversary of Scout's rescue, Ethan found himself reflecting on the extraordinary journey from that rainy alley to his present life. The changes were far more than material, though those were significant. He had moved to a better apartment closer to the sanctuary, completed his GED with honors, and begun his first college course in animal science. The deeper transformations were harder to quantify. The young man who had once walked through the world with shoulders hunched and eyes downcast now moved with quiet confidence. The habit of invisibility had given way to presence. In his education, in his growing circle of relationships, in the community that had formed around the sanctuary's mission. On the exact anniversary of the rescue, Lawrence organized a small celebration at the sanctuary. Mrs. Patel and Divya were there, of course, along with Claire and several staff members who had become friends. Scout, now fully grown into his heritage, received appropriate adulation and treats, his loyalty to Ethan unchanged despite his expanding social circle. As the gathering wound down, Lawrence drew Ethan aside, his expression uncharacteristically hesitant. "I have something to show you," he said, leading Ethan to his office. Once inside, he retrieved a file from his desk drawer. "We've been tracing Scout's lineage through DNA testing and registry records." Ethan nodded, familiar with the process that had become routine as part of the sanctuary's conservation efforts. "What we've discovered is, well, there's no easy way to say this," Lawrence continued, opening the file. "Scout wasn't randomly abandoned. He was deliberately discarded by a breeder who discovered genetic testing would reveal their operation as fraudulent. They were selling mixed-breed puppies as purebred snowcrests at astronomical prices." Ethan frowned. "But Scout is a snowcrest. You confirmed it yourself." "Yes and no." Lawrence turned the file toward him, pointing to highlighted sections of genetic reports. "Scout is approximately 85% snowcrest, enough to display all the characteristic traits to be functionally indistinguishable. But he carries markers from at least one other breed in his recent ancestry." His expression softened. "In the purebred world, that makes him technically worthless." The irony struck Ethan with physical force. "So he's not priceless?" "By conventional standards, no." Lawrence closed the file. "But the conventional standards are wrong, Ethan. They've always been wrong. Scout's value was never in his pedigree. It was in his heart, his resilience, his capacity for connection." He looked directly at Ethan, his eyes bright with emotion rarely displayed. "Just like yours." Ethan stood motionless, absorbing the revelation. All this time, the remarkable twist of fate that had seemed to elevate a discarded puppy to treasure status had been an illusion. Scout was exactly what he had first appeared to be, an unwanted cast-off, deemed flawed by those who measured worth in arbitrary standards of purity. And yet this knowledge changed nothing essential. Scout had transformed Ethan's life not through his market value, but through the simple, profound act of loving and being loved. The community that had formed around them, Mrs. Patel's kitchen wisdom, Divya's practical care, Lawrence's mentorship, Claire's growing place in his heart, none of it depended on Scout's genetic profile. "Does this change things for the sanctuary?" Ethan finally asked, practical concerns surfacing through his emotional response. Lawrence's laugh was warm, relieved. "Not in the ways that matter. Scout won't contribute to the breeding program as planned, but he's already invaluable to our educational mission. His story, the complete story, is more powerful than any pedigree." Later that evening, after the others had gone, Ethan sat alone with Scout in the sanctuary's quiet garden. The autumn air carried a hint of winter to come, but the memory of cold isolation no longer accompanied it. Scout leaned against his leg, solid and warm, his presence a constant in a life that had become unexpectedly full. "We match," Ethan told him softly, rubbing the scarred ear that had never quite healed perfectly straight. Not quite pure enough for some, but exactly right anyway. Scout looked up at him with absolute devotion, the intelligence in his eyes undimmed by the revelation of his mixed heritage. In that gaze was everything that mattered. Loyalty freely given, connection unbroken by circumstance, love that asked nothing of bloodlines or background. As darkness settled over the sanctuary, Ethan made his way home with Scout trotting faithfully at his side. The path was familiar now, worn smooth by daily passages. Ahead lay plans and possibilities unimaginable a year before. Education, career, relationships with depth and meaning. Behind lay the solitary existence he had once accepted as his permanent state. The night was cold, but Ethan walked upright, face lifted to the stars. No longer the boy who hunched against the world, He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned the most important lesson. That value isn't assigned by others or determined by circumstance, but created in the courage to connect, to care, to risk the pain of loss for the miracle of belonging. Scout, the abandoned puppy who wasn't rare after all, except in all the ways that truly mattered, had taught him that, and it had made all the difference.